We have seen staff retreats that have been run so well and everybody leaves united and aligned. And then we have seen some where the team is leaving going, that was a complete waste of my time. And I have a list of 100 to do items that I wish I could have done instead of being here. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the LeadingSmart Podcast, Season 3, Leading in Real Time. Where are you today, Tim?
I am in York, Pennsylvania, in a Four Points Sheraton hotel with a
I was about
lovely
to say,
motorcycle on the
the
wall.
4 Points, I don't stay in them very often, but they do have really great decorations, I feel like. It's very hip.
Yeah, I don't either, but this one's great. It's perfect. If you're listening on podcast, you don't see the motorcycle on the wall behind me.
And a
right shoulder.
leather-looking couch. Yeah,
And a leather
very
couch,
cool.
yeah.
Well, I am at home in Houston today. All right, everybody. Today we are going to be talking about a super practical topic. This is, leading in real time. This came out of a very real experience, several real experiences that, Tim, you have led several staff retreats in the last few months. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've led 2 this spring, and then I've got another one coming up here in a couple weeks. But I've got actually 2 more coming up. So some of these have been lead team retreats where church has taken their executive team away and doing some long-term kind of 30,000 foot view planning. And then I've got a staff retreat coming up for a church where I'm coming alongside them. They're leading portions, I'm leading portions. And this is a church that has about, I think there'll be 17 on the staff retreat. And they try to do that about once a year and get away someplace where they can, again, and maybe they don't get up to 30,000 feet, but they get up to maybe 15 or 20,000 with the whole stuff.
It's so helpful to bring in an outside facilitator often for staff retreats because of several of the topics that we're going to talk about today. So we have seen staff retreats that have been run so well and everybody leaves united and aligned. And then we have seen some where the team is leaving going, that was a complete waste of my time. And I have a list of 100 to do items that I wish I could have done instead of being here. So we want to help you avoid that second one and have more retreats like the first one that we described. So, Tim, we've come up with 4 overall best practices of the best retreats that we've been a part of recently. And the first one is to go into it with a clearly defined win rather than, hey, let's just get some time away and talk. So what does it look like for church leaders to really define what a win looks like when it comes to a retreat?
Yeah, I think different than your weekly meetings. Weekly meetings tend to be tactical. They tend to be talking about maybe debriefing what just happened or talking about what's coming up in the 1 day to 30 day kind of range. Where this is, you might have a little bit of that you have to cover at a staff retreat or a leadership team retreat, but this is like more intentionally. We need to look down the road further. We need to get away. It's one of the reasons just to get off site is so you can just clear your brain, clear your mind, not have people walking in and then define the win. What is it? So these 2 teams I met with earlier this year, one was working on their initiatives between then, which was the retreat was in late January. So between then and the end of the year. So what's our 11-month initiatives? And then they came back in a staff meeting and talked to their whole staff about these initiatives, got people excited about it. The other one was working a little further out than that. They're working on their like 18-month initiatives. And it's of all the things that we need to do and the fires we need to put out and all the things in front of us, we're going to narrow this down to 3 things, 3 big initiatives. We're going to put a point person on each. We're going to put a process around it. But they identified that win going into it, that's what the goal was. So people are already thinking about it, dreaming about it, praying about it.
I think a really good place to start with this is we've talked about this before, I think on our Leading Effective Meetings episode that was several months ago, but having a parking lot section of your executive team meetings. And so if you're like, I don't know what we should talk about at our retreat, that's a great place to start and to be able to look at those and go, okay, what would move the needle the most if we were to look at these, 10 to 20 topics that are in our parking lot? What are the most strategic things that we really need to spend time on? Which kind of leads me to the second point, which is how do we make sure that we are bringing in real decisions to make, not just discussions to have? I was leading I don't know that it was a retreat, but it was a strategic offsite, which very similar to a retreat with an executive team a few weeks ago. And they had a list of about 15 they were more of like discussions to have rather than decisions to make. And I think the temptation is discussions can make us feel productive because, oh man, we spent 3 hours on this one topic. But if we walked away without a clear next step or a decision that we needed to make, then we're not, I don't think that's productive. I think it's just we're having a conversation. And there's times where we just need to have a conversation and let it simmer and come back to it. But being really clear about that of what are decisions that need to be made versus discussions that we need to have. I think that's a really great point that you're making in these four things, Tim.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm gonna like argue against myself a little bit because I do, and you just said this, I do think there are times when you like, I know at Willow, right before I left, we spent time on a retreat type setting talking about if we needed to close one of our campuses that just didn't bounce back after COVID and was significantly draining money because of the cost of the building in downtown Chicago. So that was one that needed to ruminate for a while. So we talked about it at multiple meetings, and when I left, the decision had not been made. I think it was about a year after that before that decision was made. But that was one of like, that's a huge strategic decision. So we're actually not going to make the decision today. We're going to discuss it. We're going to just get it kind of on everyone's minds. So I'll kind of argue a little bit against myself. But I do think for reasons that you mentioned of just being productive, if we can land some decisions, if we can do like a lot of the research and the praying and the discussions ahead of time and actually land some significant decisions. I know that, especially if this is a leadership team retreat, I know the rest of the staff, they're going to be like, what'd you guys decide? What did you do? What's going to be different? What's going to change? They're going to be excited and anticipating what happened at that retreat. And it's great if we actually made some decisions.
Exactly. Yes, which is a great segue to the third one, which is having the right people in the room. So, Tim, when do you think about having an all staff retreat versus a leadership team retreat? Do you think there are times where you should do one or the other? And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I know all staff retreats, if you have a big staff, can be really expensive. If I'm putting those in priority order, let me use an analogy of a family. Like, it's really important that mom and dad have like a really tight relationship and that's in sync. More important than let's go to Disneyland and take all the kids because they'll be happy with us. It's like let's make sure things are really tight and unified at the top and then take that next step. Both are great. I would recommend both. If you have to choose because of finances or time, I would focus on that leadership team or executive team retreat. And then for budget time and money for the staff retreat. But I think like just being unified at the top, that is going to benefit the entire staff. If like we know where we're going, we know why we're going there, we are figuring out how we're going to get there. That's going to unify the staff. They'll be excited that happened. If they get some clarity.
I think if I could wave my magic wand, and if I could, we're not usually prescriptive here at Leading Smart, but if I was going to be prescriptive, I would say would really love to see a quarterly leadership team retreat or executive team retreat, and then an annual all staff retreat, and probably one more, not a full retreat, but like maybe it's a day, low cost, but like something that's more fun and life-giving for the staff to do together, like a game day or something like that. Not a full retreat, but whatever, but on a quarterly basis for executive team, annually for all staff. And that quarterly doesn't need to be like we're not going to a fancy resort or whatever. It's just getting off site to have a strategic time to work on the church rather than in it on a quarterly basis will be a game changer for your church.
And I think coming from church world, if quarterly feels like, oh, that's a bunch, like most churches think in semesters. So they think maybe in 3 periods instead of 4 quarters. So if you've got something, if you're getting off site going into the fall, and then you're getting off site going into the new year, and you're getting off site somewhere in the, post Easter before summer timeframe, that's a pretty good rhythm. But I would distinguish between an offsite meeting and an offsite retreat, which is our fourth one, which don't call it a retreat if you're not actually going to have some fun and some good meals and some just sitting around a fire pit or whatever can you just got to breathe a little bit. I think of 60-40, 70-30, like 60 kind of business, big topics, looking into the future, 40%, we're just going to be playing some games and having some fun and being ridiculous and laughing a lot. And I mean, I'm fine with offsite meetings too. Like if you're doing those 3 a year, maybe 2 of them are offsite meetings where you're just holed up offsite somewhere. And maybe the third one is an offsite retreat where you're really a little bit more money and having some some of that fun and
What are
good
some
food
of the
together.
fun things that you've seen teams do? When I was with them, we went to the Puttery, which is a franchise, across the country. Well, I don't know if it's a franchise or a chain across the country. It's like high-end putt-putt, and we did that together, and it was so fun. What are some other things that I know you guys you have a connection at Disneyland, and so one of your church clients, you got like a private cool tour at Disneyland, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like, when I'm thinking about those, I'm thinking, like, what's the environment? Like, I want us to hang together. If this is a retreat, I want us to hang together. So, you can't do this if you have an extremely large staff, but if you can find a place that can house everyone under one roof, if there's 10 of you or 20 of you or 40 of you, some kind of a camp setting, some kind of a lodge setting where you're, on your off time, you're in the same space, you're hanging out, you've got the fire pit, maybe you got a pool, you got some ways to hang out together. So it's not just like we're all going off to our own rooms or hotels or driving cars off site. It's like we're together. If I have to choose between that kind of arrangement, like fire pit, kind of preparing meals together and that kind of thing, versus let's all get in a van and go to the Puttery, I'd prefer the first. If we can do both, that's awesome. But I think just some kind of a memorable experience. And I think some of it can be guided, meaning like required fun. Hey, we're all gonna do this, and some of it can just be open, casual. Hey, anyone who wants to go play pickleball or go, for a hike or whatever, we've got two or
Yeah,
three
that's
hours where
great.
you can do that.
Okay, quick recap for an effective staff retreat. We want to see a clearly defined win, not just let's get away and talk. We want to see real decisions that need to be made, not just discussions to have. We want to make sure the right people are in the room. Not everybody needs to be there. And then we kind of had a sub point under that of delineating between a staff retreat and an executive team retreat or a leadership team retreat. And then the last one was a retreat isn't a retreat if you don't plan some extended meals, fun activities, or meaningful hang time. And so I think to sum it all up, it all goes back to being intentional, just like everything in leadership. It's all about intention and being strategic in how we're spending our time, money, and resources. And there's not many more strategic things you can do to build vulnerability based trust and build a healthy team than to spend time together in a very intentional and thoughtful way. So,
And if it's not in your budget, I've talked to a lot of churches that it came off of their calendars and out of their budget during COVID. And so there was 2 or 3 years where we didn't do it, and then we kind of got out of the cycle of it. So if it's not in your budget, get it back in your budget. If it is in your budget, leave it in your budget, even when you have to cut costs. Even if you need to ask someone in the church that truly cares about the staff. Hey, could you fund this for us this year? We had to pull it out of the budget, but it's still a high priority for us. You will not regret that, and you will regret it, I promise, if you pull it out and it's been a year or 2 or 3
that is
since
so
you've done
true,
something
Tim.
like
And
that.
rely on your board or key folks in your church who feel comfortable asking. There's probably someone who owns a restaurant or an Airbnb or a hotel in your area that would love to be asked to be able to bless your team in that way. So think about how you can, if budget is an issue, think about how you can leverage or ask for a nonprofit discount. A lot of places will have nonprofit discounts. So there
Yep.
is, you and I are sticklers about this, but find a way. It is that important. All right, for our random segment today, I wanted to hear about, excuse me, a win that you've had recently with AI. So you and I feel like we haven't really talked about AI recently on our podcast, and you and I have both been experimenting with Claude and ChatGPT, and I feel like we both were kind of early adopters when it all first came out. And now I feel like we've talked about how we're both like, oh my gosh, now we feel behind. So yeah, what's a win you've had lately with an AI tool?
I tell you, just this week, so I've been using ChatGPT since it came out. I don't remember, was that 2 years ago, Holly? I can't remember
No, it
when, a
was
year
at
and a
least
half
2
ago?
years, maybe a little more, yeah.
I know it wasn't out when we started
No.
Leading Smart full time in summer 23, so I think it was maybe that next spring. Anyway, been using that since then, and it's been an amazing tool. Um, just started experimenting with Claude Cowork, just in the last month, maybe 6 weeks. It's kind of funny, Holly, because you said, "Hey, I'm gonna, like, experiment for us," and then you started doing that a little bit, and
Uh-huh.
then I just couldn't wait. So I was
Yep,
like,
which
"I
is
gotta do."
totally our personalities.
Yeah. But I just went down the rabbit trail, rabbit hole connecting my in Claude so it can see my calendar, it can see my emails, and it can see my Google Drive, and it can see all my AI conversations on Zoom through Fathom. And so just this week, two different churches I've been working with, where I just asked it to look at a certain date window of all of my interaction with anyone from that specific church and help prepare me for look at my calendar and see what meetings I have coming up with that church and just help prepare me, give me a prep document so that I can be completely ready. And in one case, a slide deck. And it did that amazingly well. I think I changed two things on the slide deck. I just changed the size of the font because it was a little bit small. I didn't change it. I asked Claude to change it, and he willingly complied. But then it actually worked great. And it used previous templates and previous content that I had used in other similar slide decks. So that's been amazing. I'm still figuring it out and tweaking it and learning how to use it and learning which tools within Claude to use. But that's been a growing edge for me here in the last
I've been
couple
really,
months.
yeah, I was just gonna
What
say, I've
about
been
you?
so impressed with you because, yeah, that's our personality. I'm like, idea, like activate, and I get started and then I don't touch it. And then you take it because you have tenacity as a genius. So you take it to the finish line and you're like, now I've implemented it in 15 different ways. And I'm like, oh, cool. I haven't even done any of that. That's great. Mine has been really practical. So I am sponsoring an event for a nonprofit here in town this week. And they sent an email like last week that was like, hey, if you want to record a video or put something in like the swag bag, let us know. And I'm like, oh man, like not only is it going to take me an additional cost to hire a designer to design something, and then, order whatever. And I was like, wait a second, maybe I can try to tell Claude what I want because I've heard that Claude is better with design because I use ChatGPT pretty heavily and have honestly just not slowed down and created margin enough to really get in the weeds with Claude. I have it. I have done a few little things on it, whatever. So anyway, and then I got my notebook, and this has always been the challenge for me. I can draw a sketch of what I want designed, but to go into a design tool and build it is like my worst nightmare. Like, no, thank you. God bless all the designers out there. So I did that. I like drew a little sketch on my notebook if you're watching us on YouTube. So there's my horrible sketch. And I threw it into Claude and was like trying to tell it what I wanted, and it was doing a horrible job. And I was like, dang it. Like, this is not what I want. So then I threw it into ChatGPT and it nailed it. So now I'm going to show this. So I was just
Nice.
so grateful in that moment for like, this was exactly my vision come to life. I took some screenshots of I had Googled like coffee shop, circle design, was kind of the vibe I was going for. Put those screenshots in there, put the picture of my sketch in there, put my brand colors in there. And I was just so excited. And that enabled me, a solopreneur, to be able to present myself in the way that I want to and get the stickers here really quickly. So that was a big practical win for me.
I've not done anything on the design side of things with any AI tools, apart from like making a silly meme to make fun of someone. But besides that, nothing
Well, and it's
productive.
really interesting. Like, I'm a business strategy nerd. So I just love seeing them kind of compete with each other and try to like compete, but also carve out their own competitive advantages in the market. And so that was just really interesting because I was like, oh, in this situation, ChatGPT outperformed Claude by 100x in my opinion. So it's just fascinating to see. Oh, the other thing I wanted to give a shout out to Descript. So that's actually what we use to record our podcasts. I had a video that I was trying to edit, and I am, again, similar to design, I'm not a video editor as well. So I went booked this little studio in town for an hour. So he sent me the video file and the audio file, and I was like, oh, are you serious? Like, I don't know how to combine these and whatever. Well, with Descript, I've been using Descript for over a year now pretty heavily, but I had not used this feature before. I uploaded both of those files, and there is a thing that they call Overlord, which is their built-in AI. And I was talking to Descript like I would talk to ChatGPT, and it did everything. It combined the files, it lined them up, and then I would say like, hey, cut this here, cut this there, put a lower third, no, make some more spacing. And I was able to create a 2-minute video for this event that I was so proud of with no video editing skills. And so, Anyway, those were a couple of wins that I got really excited about with AI.
Gemini is built into Google, and I've used it recently. I haven't used it very much at all, but I've used it recently. Like, hey, help me remember Holly's husband's name just minutes before I'm ready to walk into a meeting. And it's looking through all my emails and all my interactions and says, tells me what Holly's husband's name is. And so it's
That
been
is
super helpful for
awesome.
that kind of
His
thing.
name's Elliot, by the way, Tim.
Yes, I know that. I just never remember
What
your
do you
dog's
guys call
name. It's like, I
him?
think it's Snacks
Snacks.
or
I think
something.
you call him Snacks. His name's Scraps.
Snack.
All right,
Yeah,
everybody. Well, that was
yeah,
fun. That
whatever.
was random and helpful, hopefully. Thank you for listening today. We want to tell you that if you would like help with your staff retreats, we would love to be your partner in that. So Tim and I both step in and lead, whether it's like a strategic offsite or it is a more what we would call fun staff retreat, yet strategic and intentional, as we talked about. Reach out to us. You can go to leadingsmart.com, click on Let's Talk. You can book a time on my calendar. We can talk about your needs and customize and tailor something to best support you. And we also want to thank one of our Leading Smart partners, Vanderblumen. So we are, as you guys have probably heard, we hand select a few partners that make everything we do possible, from our gatherings to our podcast and everything in between. And so Vanderblumen, Tim and I both had the joy of working there. That's how we met. We worked at Vanderblumen for 6 years, overlapped for 6 years. And so if you
Yeah.
are currently looking to build your team, you're hiring, you're thinking about how to hire, or even just all the resources that you and I both were a part of creating there. They've got a great podcast. They've got incredible resources, but executive search and staffing is what they do best. So head on over there to vanderbiltman.com, reach out to their team, tell them Leading Smart sent you, and we are grateful for their partnership. Anything else, Tim, that we need to talk about before we part ways today?
Don't think so. If you're in Houston, yeah, I'll say that. If you're in Houston, we have a Houston Roundtable coming up on June 4th. So you'll find information about that on leadingsmart.com. There's only space for 25. So if you want to be one of the 25, that would be awesome. We'd love to hang with you
All
there.
right. Well, Tim, you have a wonderful time in York, Pennsylvania, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye, everybody.